Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. And now I'm going to tell you what being an innovator means to me. An innovator is a bold and fearless person, a problem solver who's willing to break rules, willing to disrupt the norm, and willing to fail. The day I was fired was the day that I pursued the best idea of my life so far. Most people are terrified of failing. Raise your hand if you're afraid of doing something wrong. Okay, getting in trouble, getting a bad grade at school, for some of the adults in the audience, maybe getting fired. Wherever you are in your life, it's human nature to want to do well, to want to succeed, to be acknowledged, and to please the people around you. But sometimes it's the moment when you mess up that changes your path forever and for the better. Let me tell you my story and why you should not be afraid of failing anymore. I was managing an artist that I got signed to Capitol Records. He was 15 years old, he was from Barbados, and no, you probably haven't heard of him. But when he inked his deal, everyone agreed he was going to be the next big thing. The label jumped in, and I was barely 20 years old myself at the time, and my head was spinning. I received a gazillion emails every day, yes, a gazillion, and the label was spending money like nobody's business. I had more than one OMG moments wondering if I was going to be able to handle everything. Which, by the way, I'll tell you now, is totally normal. Because they say when you're uncomfortable, that's when you grow the most. That year I had an emotional growth spurt. About 12 months into the flurry of madness, we were not succeeding the way that everyone had hoped. The only thing scarier than a gazillion emails is zero. The once hyper-connected executives at the label had gone radio silent, and I knew something was wrong. The thing is, we had recorded amazing music with the top songwriters and producers, and we had Snoop Dogg on the single, and we had a full-on radio campaign. But the problem was that nobody knew who he was, and so the label said he'd probably get dropped. So I went into problem-solving mode. We needed an audience, and we needed one immediately. I sat down with the president of the label, and he started to go through a laundry list of things that we needed in order for this artist to not get dropped. Number one, social media, which I had been saying from day one. Number two, a tour, because we needed to go out and actually meet real people. And then I stopped listening, because it was super clear to me in that moment what we needed to do. What if, I thought, we put together a social media tour? It had never been done. It was late 2009, and YouTubers were becoming a thing. Sure, at the time, there were still a lot of cat videos, but among the internet fodder, there was something happening. It was early, but there was no doubt that these video pioneers were onto something, and their millions of dedicated followers, they knew it too. So I rushed out of that meeting. I couldn't wait to call my artist to tell him I had figured it all out. My goal was to save his place at the label, to redirect what was going wrong, and to just keep going. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want the label to think I was a bad manager. I didn't want to let my artist down. And I didn't want to lose this chance, because in that moment, I thought it was the only one I was ever going to get. So I thought, if we put him on tour, maybe, just maybe, the magic fairy dust of the other social media stars that we would book on the tour could rub off on him, and he too could grow a social following. He answered the phone. "A social media tour," I blurted out. And he said, "What?" Then I went on to explain. But instead of the response I was hoping to get, "You're brilliant, thank you, you did it," he was radio silent, which we know from earlier in my speech is a bad thing. 1 week later, he fired me. I had just failed into my greatest idea. So instead of wallowing in my failure, I felt freed. I may have failed as a talent manager in that moment, but I was just beginning as an entrepreneur. My career and my achievements, they didn't stop there. In fact, that's where they all began. That was not the only chance I was gonna get, and that was the day Digitour was started. My partner, who's now my husband, and I launched the first ever social media tour. We hit the road in 2011, and fast forward to today, we've done over 500 events, we've sold hundreds of thousands of tickets each year, and we're the largest producer of live events featuring social media stars. Now, Digitour was our idea for a digital tour that was going to solve a problem, which in hindsight seems really small now. The brand has gone on to become something that really is meaningful for teens today, and it's become bigger than anything we could have imagined. We've toured many people some of you guys may have heard of: Baby Ariel, Jack and Jack, Jacob Sartorius, Brooklyn and Bailey. Even Cameron Dallas, Demi Lovato, and Fifth Harmony have played our festivals. So our interest in solving a problem and thinking outside of the box led us to create something totally new that disrupted the live entertainment industry. We've created a bona fide new category of touring and live around social media talent. Now, when we started this business, we had a lot of music business experience, but zero live experience. And we broke all the rules. Not because we were trying to be rebellious, but because we just didn't know any better. We did what we thought made sense, and along the way, we wrote a new manual on how to tour this type of talent. Many disruptors of industries change the way an industry operates by doing things differently. For example, Airbnb reimagined hospitality. Uber and Lyft transformed transportation, and Postmates rethought food delivery. Thank goodness. Their ability to find a different and better way to do something rocked their respective industries. So what does this teach us? I'd say that following the rules and conforming will not always make a dent. Now, I'm not telling you to not do your homework or not listen to your parents, because you should definitely do those things. But when you're envisioning something that you'd like to do, something new, my advice is not to pay too much attention to the traditional how-tos. Sometimes not even knowing how things are done gives you the creative freedom to dream up a better way. This is how I launched Digitour. Now, I suppose I was always a rule breaker, not for being rebellious for the sake of being rebellious or to make anyone's life difficult, but because I've always seen rules as optional. When I was 15 years old, I wanted to work at a record label. When I told the guidance counselor at my school, she smiled and told me that internships are typically reserved for college students who can receive school credit. I nodded and told her that I still intended to apply for a summer internship. That semester, I spent every lunch period with that counselor. We researched opportunities, and I wrote letter after letter to HR departments across New York City explaining my passion for music, and I waited. That summer, I landed the impossible. I got an internship at J Records, which is home to Alicia Keys and founded by music mogul Clive Davis. I was the youngest intern, by a lot. But had I just read the rules and followed blindly, I would never have made the first move to making my goals a reality. Now back to Digitour and rule breaking, and one last story before I leave you guys. I remember being elbow to elbow with 20,000 teens and preteens at our largest festival in New York at Citi Field. That was a pinch me moment. But prior to that event, we spoke with AEG and Live Nation. They're huge promoters and producers of the biggest events in the world. And they wanted to partner with us. They had suggested a way that we could do the event where we'd have 2 to 3 openers and 1 to 2 headliners, all very manageable stuff. But we politely declined and opted instead to book 50 talent. They each did about 5 minutes on stage, and the fans loved it. What they wanted, what the audience wanted, was the IRL version of their social media experience. Fast and furious. They wanted to consume as many social stars as they could. So here we broke the rules, we rewrote the rules, and we weren't afraid of failing, because I knew that sometimes when you go all in, and you do fail, it only leads to something better. My name is Meredith Rojas. I started Digitour, and I started as a Girl Scout. Thank you for listening, and I wish all of you guys the best of luck in your adventures. Think big, and remember, anything you can imagine is real.